The general election looking like it could be a nail-biter. Donald Trump becoming the presumptive Republican nominee earlier this month, allowing him to consolidate support and set his sights exclusively on November. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is still battling Bernie Sanders for the Democratic nomination. Even as she looks ahead to the general election, a new poll this morning shows she may have her hands full with Donald Trump. It finds that the two candidates are in a statistical dead heat among registered voters, with Trump favored by 46% and Clinton favored by 44%. Newt Gingrich is a former Speaker of the House and a Fox News contributor. Joins us right now. Mr. Speaker, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
I'll tell you, look at the Democratic side of the race, and it's getting even more interesting and close than the Republicans were over the last few months. What do you make of these new polls?
Well, first of all, I don't think they signal a really close race by November. I think if you look at the trend line, they signal that Trump will probably consolidate and Hillary will probably continue to stagnate. And the odds are pretty good Trump will win, much like Reagan did in 1980, by a surprisingly big number. This country's had a long, long time to get to know Hillary Clinton. She cannot build a base that works. People don't believe her. That's actually getting worse, not better. And, of course, she now has a real civil war. Everybody said the Republicans were going to have a problem. Well, Bernie Sanders just endorsed the primary opponent of the Democratic National Committee chair. Sanders is committed to going all the way to the convention in a really bitter fight. So I think the Democrats will be a shambles by the end of the summer. I think younger, reform-oriented Democrats either won't vote or they'll vote for Trump, and that poses a huge problem for Hillary.
You know, there were some pretty good op-eds this weekend, and Peggy Noonan's op-ed in the Journal this weekend basically says, look, the ticket is Hillary, Bernie Sanders. Could you ever see that ticket?
Well, you could, but I don't know what it gets you. I mean, it'll be left and even lefter. Bernie, in the end, what's he going to say? I didn't mean all these nasty things I said about how corrupt she is and how dishonest she is and how incompetent she is.
Right.
I mean, he could. Politics has produced a lot of things. Jack Kennedy, you know, picking Lyndon Johnson in 1960 in a way could be an example. But my hunch is that she's looking for a Latino. She's looking for the next generation, a younger person. But she's in a real problem because Sanders turns out to be serious about his values, and I think he's getting angrier and angrier. And he has nothing to lose. I mean, and again, I think the fact that he just went into a congressional district in Florida to endorse the opponent of the Democratic National Committee chair tells you he's playing for keeps. He's not playing for second place.
Isn't it extraordinary that we know that the economy is the #1 issue for voters, and yet Hillary Clinton is talking about everything but that? And even last week when she basically said, look, I'm going to put my husband in charge of the economy because he knows how to do that, was such a window into the fact that she really does not know what to do. And if we go back to the 90s and we remember you, Newt Gingrich, and your contract with America, and we remember what that led to, including a balanced budget, including huge job creation, she's basically admitting, I have no idea, but Bill did it, and he led it, and he'll do it again, even though she's all the way to the left and she's already told us what she wants to do.
You know, that's the problem if you're a liberal. I mean, you can be a liberal in a really, really hot economy because there's enough wealth, there's enough income, there are enough jobs. But if you get a weak economy and you look at what liberals stand for, the president's recent efforts to make work more expensive, the fact that their tax policy keeps money outside the United States, the fact that their trade policy allows jobs to be exported, their belief in big bureaucracy, even if it kills small business, you look at all those things together, there's not much she can say in detail about the economy. And frankly, when you have somebody like Donald Trump who has made billions of dollars because he understands business, getting in a brawl with him on the economy would be hopeless. Now, I don't quite get what she's saying about Bill. If she's going to put him in charge of the biggest issue, does this mean that she's going to go to funerals and play the role of the vice president? I mean, I thought that was just sort of one of those weird moments where she had a throwaway line she couldn't resist.
I thought so, too, because I think she was trying so hard to keep attached to him when it comes to leadership on the economy, even though she's talking about raising $1.1 trillion in new taxes. She's talking about building on Obamacare, which, of course, is one of the key reasons businesses are not hiring. And she's talking about reining in business and raising taxes. She talks about the Buffett rule. Well, she's slamming Trump's foreign policy experience, though, in a new ad, Newt. What do you think that's going to do in terms of confidence in his foreign policy?
I think all Trump has to do is say, she wanted to get rid of Gaddafi. Look at the mess Libya has. She wanted to reset the Russian policy. They took the Crimea. They took the eastern part of Ukraine. They're now in Syria. That was a disaster. Her policies have consistently failed. This is one of her real challenges. And she can't go back and tell you it was a great success, because it wasn't. And you could say, yes, she has a lot of experience, but it's experience at losing. I mean, it'd be like taking the last coach for the Atlanta Braves who got fired recently and saying, look, I mean, he's at least got the experience of leading a losing team.
Yeah.
Her policies have failed, and I think Trump, I saw him, or listened to him rather, on a telephone this morning on Fox and Friends. I think Trump is very prepared to debate who's better in foreign policy.
Well, I'll tell you this one. In terms of the economy, that 15% tax rate that he's talking about, you have to believe that's going to create a boom for the stock market and perhaps move the needle on economic growth. 15% corporate tax rate, Newt. I know there are questions about how he pays for it, but he's saying that once he moves the needle on economic growth, that partly pays for it.
Well, it clearly does. That's what happened with Reagan. And the truth is, and that's what happened with us when we cut capital gains tax, leading to a real boom in the mid-1990s, by the way, against most of the Democrats. But the other part of this is, if he gets down to 15%, you've got about $2 trillion locked up overseas that's going to come rushing home to be invested. That is an enormous boon for the American economy. And Trump is going to be as tough on regulation as he is on taxes. And the regulation kills more small businesses today than taxes do. So I think you'd have a very big small business renaissance under a Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we see that the Republicans are coalescing around him as a result, partly because of that. Real quick on the VP search, he's got a meeting with Bob Corker as this decision is looming. Who do you think is on the short list, Newt? I know we've spoken about you as well.
No, look, I think, first of all, Bob Corker would be terrific. He certainly knows foreign policy as chairman of the International Relations Committee. He came out and praised Trump's speech on foreign policy. He's a very good former mayor, very successful businessman. He'd bring a lot to the ticket. I think they ought to actually look at Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, who is very, very popular, very widely liked in the Senate as a real possibility. I think the governor of Oklahoma, Mary Fallin, would be, again, a possibility. Trump's got a lot of people he can look to. The truth is, he's going to win the election. He needs to think about who he needs to help him govern, because the vice president's not going to be a key to winning the election. Donald Trump is. But I think that he's looking widely, and I really think he ought to be careful and go slow, because this is his first really big decision now that he's the nominee.
Yeah, for sure. Newt, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks so much. Newt Gingrich is the former Speaker of the House and the author of the new book. Pick it up, Rediscovering God in America by Newt Gingrich.